It all started with the sound of a chainsaw, sharp, mechanical, and wrong. At first I thought it was a neighbor trimming trees. But when I looked out my window, my stomach dropped. There in the morning light stood Karen Williams, our self-appointed queen of the HOA, directing a demolition crew as they tore apart my grandfather's 80-year-old bridge. The bridge that connected my land to the world beyond. Sawdust flew across the creek like ashes from a funeral. And as I grabbed my phone to record, I had no idea that this single moment would turn an entire neighborhood upside down. That bridge wasn't just wood and nails. It was a piece of my family's history. My grandfather built it in 1943 during the war using reclaimed oak and handmade iron brackets. It had survived storms, floods, and time itself. And now a clipboard-wielding Karen decided it was an eyesore. I marched toward her heart-pounding phone in hand. "Stop right there," I shouted. The workers hesitated, chainsaws idling. "Do you have a permit for this?" She smiled, that condescending kind of smile people use when they think they're untouchable. "Mr. Parker," she said, tilting her head, "the HOA has every right to remove unsafe structures. This bridge is a liability." Liability. That's what she called my grandfather's craftsmanship. I demanded to see paperwork, county approval, environmental assessment, anything. Karen flipped through her clipboard like she was pretending to look for something, then waved at the crew. The chainsaw roared again. A section of oak fell into the creek with a crack so loud it felt like it split through my chest. I stood there, camera rolling, every nerve in my body, screaming to do something, but I didn't. Not yet. Because anger is loud, but evidence is permanent. That night I stood where the bridge used to be, staring at the broken concrete footings. My grandfather was a quiet man, but he always said, "Never fight with fists when you can fight with facts." So that's what I did. I swore I'd rebuild not just the bridge, but my family's honor, and I'd do it through the law. The next morning I was waiting at the Harrison County Records office before they even unlocked the doors. Janet, the clerk, recognized me. "Back again, David. What are you digging up this time?" Everything I told her. I needed the history of my property and the whole Willow Creek Estates development. She brought out boxes of old maps and deeds that smelled like dust and government air conditioning. Hours passed as I flipped through yellowed pages until one phrase caught my eye. Perpetual easement for ingress and egress across grantor's property. My heart started racing. The grantor was my great-grandfather. The grantee was the original land developer of Willow Creek Estates. And the fine print, it said the easement could be revoked if the grantee ever caused willful damage to the property. My bridge, Karen's crew, their safety hazard cleanup. It all clicked into place. The only road into their neighborhood, Maple Lane, sat entirely on my family's land. And if I revoked that easement, they'd have no legal way in or out. I drove straight to see Michael Thompson, my neighbor and retired land surveyor. He examined the documents with growing disbelief. "David," he said, "you're holding the keys to 127 houses. They have one way in and one way out, and it's yours." He did some quick math. If they have to build a new access road, they'll need 2 years, millions in permits and construction. I couldn't help but smirk. Karen had just bulldozed the wrong man's bridge. That night I drafted a cease and desist letter, formal, calm, ruthless. I demanded restitution and proof of authority. 3 days later her reply arrived, smug as expected. The HOA acted within its right to ensure community safety. She actually had the nerve to say I should be thankful. I filed complaints with the county, the sheriff's department, even the Texas Department of Housing. Then I waited. And then things exploded. A local journalist named Tracy Davis published a story titled, "HOA Overreach Leads to Legal Confrontation." It spread like wildfire. People shared it online, residents started whispering, and Karen's authority began to crack. That's when I got a call from someone I never expected, Patricia Henderson, one of the HOA board members. "Mr. Parker," she said nervously, "not all of us agreed with what Karen did. There's something you should see." We met at a coffee shop outside the neighborhood. Patricia was in her late 60s, calm but shaking. She handed me a manila envelope full of internal emails, meeting minutes, and transaction records. What I found inside was pure dynamite. Karen had authorized the demolition without a board vote, without permits, and had paid the contractor using an emergency maintenance fund meant for storm repairs. Worse, there was an email from the contractor asking if they needed county approval. Karen's reply, "Don't worry about the paperwork, it's just one old man's bridge." I felt fury rise in me again, but this time it was cold, calculated. I thanked Patricia, promising her I wouldn't let her name get dragged into it. As I pieced everything together, it hit me. Karen hadn't just violated my property. She'd violated the trust of her entire community. But not everyone wanted the truth out. One night around 2 a.m., my security cameras went dark. When I checked the feed, they'd been spray-painted over. My mailbox was smashed to pieces, letters scattered across the yard. For a second, I froze. Maybe this was a warning. Maybe I'd gone too far. I sat on my porch staring at the mess, wondering if it was worth it. Maybe I was being stubborn, maybe I was just one old man clinging to a bridge. But then I remembered my grandfather's calloused hands, the smell of oak and iron when he worked, and the way he'd smile when I crossed that bridge as a kid. No, I wasn't backing down. I replaced every camera with new ones, night vision, remote feed, full coverage. If they wanted to intimidate me, they'd pick the wrong man. By morning, the sheriff's deputy had the footage. 2 teenagers, both sons of HOA board members. It didn't take long to connect the dots. When the news broke, the story went nuclear. The county opened a criminal investigation. Talk radio debated HOA power abuse. Karen's name was everywhere, and not in the way she liked. Within weeks, I was invited to a mediation session at the local elementary school gym. A neutral judge would oversee it, and every resident was welcome to attend. The night of the meeting, the gym was packed, 200 people, reporters, even county officials. I arrived early, set up my laptop and projector, and waited. When Karen walked in, you could see the arrogance cracking. She still wore that pastel blazer, still clutched her clipboard, but her eyes darted around like a trapped animal. The judge began by outlining the rules. Then it was my turn. I started with one simple question. How many of you knew that your neighborhood's only access road sits on my private land? Not a single hand went up. I pulled up a scanned image of the 1943 easement deed on the projector. The room went silent as I explained clause by clause how the HOA had breached the agreement when they destroyed my bridge. When I read the section about termination rights, people gasped. Some looked straight at Karen like they were seeing her for the first time. Next, I showed the emails Patricia had given me, Karen's own words about just one old man complaining about progress. Then came the bank records, misused funds, unauthorized payments. Finally, the photos and videos of the demolition. Every frame, every face. I could feel the crowd shifting, the disbelief turning into anger. Karen stood up, face flushed, voice trembling but defiant. She started reading from a prepared statement about protecting the community and necessary emergency action. It sounded rehearsed, empty. The judge asked her directly, "Did you obtain proper permits before ordering the demolition?" Karen hesitated, then snapped, "Permits are just red tape that slow things down. Sometimes leadership means making hard choices." The crowd erupted, gasps, murmurs, a few shouts of "unbelievable." It was the moment she buried herself. The judge's ruling came quickly and clean. The HOA would acknowledge my easement rights in writing, pay for a full reconstruction of the bridge plus damages, and adopt new transparency rules for spending. Karen Williams was to resign immediately and could not hold any HOA position for 5 years. If they ever violated the agreement again, I had the legal right to revoke their access entirely. Karen's hand shook as she signed the settlement. Some residents clapped, others just sat in stunned silence. As she left the room, shoulders stiff, I caught her eye for a second. There was no victory in her expression anymore, just realization. She'd destroyed my bridge, but I'd dismantled her empire. A few months later, the new bridge stood proud over Silver Creek, stronger, safer, but still honoring my grandfather's design. The new HOA president, Patricia, invited me to join a community advisory board. And though I declined the title, I attended the first meeting just to see the change. People were finally talking, not shouting, not dictating talking. I never saw Karen again after she sold her house and moved out of state. Word was, she took a loss on the sale, and the buyer's lawyer demanded full title research before closing. Fitting, really. The woman who ignored legal documents was finally undone by one. Sometimes I walk across that new bridge at sunset. The kids call it Mr. Parker's Bridge now. Funny thing, it's become a symbol of what happens when you stand your ground the right way. I think of my grandfather, of everything that's happened, and I realize something. They tore down a bridge made of wood, but I built one made of justice.